Greetings! Welcome to the devlog for hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. We're going to start off as always with a quick sound check. Make sure your speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? Well, we have got a feature preview for a bunch of things that are being rebuilt and improved in preparation for Return of the Rotwieners getting its finale/major rework this month. So for that mode, obviously that's a fairly melee-centric mode compared to, say, Take and Hold on average. And so I wanted to go back and give another shot at making Sosig melee, well, frankly put, not terrible. As many of you know, the Sosigs, when they're doing melee attacks, sort of have two things. They sort of wander up to you, sort of standing ramrod straight, and they either do an overhand hit or they do a stab with a knife. And that's basically it. There's no sort of distance attenuation, there's no flanking, there's nothing interesting about their timing. And so that has been changed. I'm also going to introduce you to a dev tool that is very much incomplete, but that I started putting together to make iteration time for a bunch of these combat changes way faster. And what it allows me to do is to spawn various sorts of Sosigs and give them commands and such. So to take a look at how different the new melee systems are, I'm going to actually spawn us a fairly well-armored gladiator. I'm going to spawn it activated. Wander, and I'm going to have two of these fight. One of them might get a lucky headshot off and kill the other quickly, but this should give you an idea of what the basically what's been added in terms of melee behavior, both in terms of attack as well as their defensive capabilities. So let's spawn two of these.
Oh, goodness.
Let's get up close. So you can see they're actually...
Oh! What's over there?
Cutting each other's heads off. Nice shot. Let's bring another in.
Check this out.
They actually move forward and back with their strikes. Oop, that one might bleed out. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yep, they take one to the face, they bleed out pretty fast.
Oh, why me? You're dead meat.
Oof. In the past, they've actually, of course, I go to show you this, and they die in like a couple seconds. Let's bring a secular in here and see if this is a little more interesting. This one fights with two weapons.
All you can eat.
Ooh, got a body shot in there.
Oh, dear.
Oh, he's bleeding out, and he's gone.
Over there.
And here's our winner. So yeah, so the things you should be paying attention to is that for each type of Sosig melee weapon, there are now sort of pose behaviors associated with the weapon being at rest, with them sort of in the ready pose, and then them attacking. Yeah, this guy needs to settle down. There's no one around to fight there, buddy. You need to chill out. Oh, that just breaks. Trying to talk to people. There we go. That was distracting. So as you saw there, these are actually some melee weapons that are being put together and configured for Rotwieners. And one of the things that I wanted to do, both from a balance standpoint and just to make it so that tons of them didn't end up sort of clogging things up, is that all of the Sosig weapons are basically, after a couple hits, oh, come on, there we go, they shatter. They won't shatter if you hit them against the environment, but if you hit them against any sort of like live physics object, they're gonna break pretty fast. There we go. Let's clean up our scene. Command delete all. Let's take a look at a couple other new behaviors. Ooh, this is a cool one. I have managed to get Sosig melee weapons that contextually they're able to throw as well. So let's go ahead and get ourselves some proper equipment here. Let's get ourselves a heater shield and an arming sword. These are kind of my favorites. Put those over. Let's make ourselves an enemy of the bots. Let's make sure we actually hit that. Hoplite, random IFF, all equipment activated. Cool. So this one, so basically what's going to happen is that once I spawn this, because I'm going to be at a distance, the Sosig is actually going to throw its javelin at me, hopefully. Here we go.
Huh?
Oh wait, nope, they're set to random, so they're going to attack each other. That's silly. Let's delete those. IFF4. There we go.
Huh?
Oh,
Here, come on.
and they might actually pick that up. Oh, a little friendly fire there. Ah! So one thing you'll notice is that you can actually parry attacks. If they're in their attack swing and you hit their weapon, their attack aborts. Oh, didn't do it fast enough there. Obviously easier to do with a shield. Oh, as I throw my sword away from me. Let's do that one more time.
Let's check this out. Ow! Ow!
Whap. So yeah, so that's that behavior. It's also a little easier to see the parry timing. If I say spawn myself a civvy wiener here with just a single melee weapon. So primary only, 3. Let's try this out.
Huh?
There we go. Oh crap, picked up a second. Nope, this is not what this demonstration is about. Ah!
Oh, goodness.
I swear, every time I go to show something, I am just Captain Fumble Meats. There we go.
Double down. Owie.
Keep doing that. So yeah, so that's that behavior. Trying to think what else has been tweaked. Oh, we should go ahead. Also, as part of the Rotwieners combat experience rework, basically all of the types of enemies that you fight in that mode are being replaced, reimagined, or improved. Some of this is just the new sort of melee behavior. A lot of it has to do with, I'll say, just straight up balance tweaking in the way that various types of damage are useful against certain types and not useful against others. A lot of folks, I would say probably the leading complaint of the combat experience in Rotwieners was that in many cases it didn't feel as though firearms served an adequate purpose, that it was worth the, carry capacity to even carry them and enough ammo for them. And so some of that is being addressed on the sort of ecosystem side, and some of it is being addressed in terms of their actual damage model. So let's take a peek at some of the rebuilt types, and these have not been balanced yet. So if you're like, wow, it takes a lot of shots or not enough shots, ignore that. I'm just getting the basics set up for them so far. So I might actually go ahead and pull a shotgun out here to prepare. This is going to be a basic rot, and we're going to go all equipment. So these are sort of just like random civilians. Ooh, cool, we got a hobbled one, so you can't move very fast. So you'll notice instead of having really precise, sort of clean attack vectors in melee, they take sort of wider and weirder swings that are harder to predict. And this one, I was just about to say, is easier to parry. And then he goes and hits me. But we can, of course, just take their head off. One thing you will note, biggest changes I'm making is that I am going back on the design experiment that I had had in Rotwieners, which was headshots don't actually take a target down. It was a fascinating experiment. I wanted to see what happened, but in the end, it had a number of negative feedback loops in terms of design and balancing that I didn't like, so that is being removed. One thing you'll notice is that it will be easier to stun them momentarily with, say, a leg shot, but they will stand up again. Yep. Beautiful. Let's see, we've got floaters, which you will notice have that these are going to be found down at Lakeside, and these, let's see if it spawns correctly with all its stuff. Yep. As you can see, they tend to have a pair of fishing spears. There we go. And then replacing these spitters is, and this is, I'm probably going to get myself killed here because these projectile weapons are not super good against these. These are called pricks, and basically they're almost like a cactus Sosig that fires these little spikes. And you know what? We're going to use our new toy to do better against this. Yes, I am finally adding a ballistic shield with a window that you can stand behind. Some of you may have seen it out of the corner of my vision earlier. So we're going to use this to protect ourselves so we can actually take a look at this fellow. There we go. They have a weapon. Oh, that is still a little jarring. Let's take out our shotgun. I can't remember if I racked this. As I said, projectile weapons, not so great against them. Gotta chase him down. There we go. So there you have it. There is your little preview of some of the changes to some of Rotwieners' enemies. Obviously, as the release of this rework gets closer over the course of October, you'll see me actually testing them a little more in context instead of in this scene here. Anywho, let's jump out of VR and talk about the other stuff that I'm going to be focusing on over the next couple weeks. Yo! So I hope you're excited about those upcoming melee changes. Let's talk about, though, Rotwieners and sort of what is the plan with it. Obviously, the mode still needs its end, and it needs a number of its quests filled out, made a little more interesting, etc. But the core thing that I'm focusing on for this sort of update slash rework of the mode is improving the combat experience across the board. And that also means sort of everything that knits into it. So the way that a number of the crafting systems in it function will be changing, as well as sort of the resource and ecosystem. Like right now, meat cores are very plentiful, and the way that they're used, say, once you actually encounter a merchant, is to basically purchase something for a single run. And you can oftentimes get screwed. You can end up paying that and just getting a kind of a crappy weapon. And so a whole bunch of that is going to be shifting towards things that you permanently unlock, both to make that more rewarding, but also because in certain ways, one of the big changes in this combat rework is that it's going to be getting more difficult in a number of ways. And so your death will be more common, but you will be able to perma-unlock more things, essentially shifting elements of its sort of meta towards closer to taken hold. In that you'll be doing lots of runs, but unlocking these various things, including finishing quests. In a big way, I needed a year of working on limited ammo mode in Taken Hold in that sort of laboratory to understand what it took to make limited ammo gameplay enjoyable. And I don't think it's enjoyable in the version of Rotwieners that's in the game right now, but I know how to fix it, or at least I think I do. So that's going to be changing. As I mentioned, it's going to have a lot of new enemy types. I think I have like 12 or 14 planned at the moment. A lot of them are going to be tied to where they are on the map more conceptually, and have more variation in the way they do damage, the way they spawn, what they're strong against versus weak against, and that information will be communicated to you as a player. There's probably going to be the equivalent of, it might even be sort of like bird watching info signs sort of thing, except with sort of notes left by some of the like ranger characters for what enemy you're likely to encounter in an area and what you want to use in terms of engaging it. So as an example, like the pricks that you saw in the video there, like super weak against fire, but as you saw, you can actually throw a lot of rounds at them and it doesn't do a lot. Whereas the regular rots, the sort of citizenry that you encounter, are a little resistant to melee. It's actually better to use firearms against them. So there'll be a whole bunch of those, like use this, not that relationships, which will then complicate the combat situation when you start encountering pairs of them at once. Cool. So cool. We talked about eco stuff, combat balance. So yeah, and then a one big change in terms of like say the reload-o-matics in the current version of that mode. You see them have, they basically like it's a specific cartridge type and a specific subtype. I'm going to move those to be closer to the way that ammo reload stations work in Taken Hold, except that you'll still be unlocking secondary and tertiary subtypes, like slugs versus triple hit for shotgun, or tracers or API for rifle rounds and such. It's just I'm not going to have to lay out like 15 reload-o-matics, which will also mean that I can place more of those dotted around the map, so it isn't the case that you can only get more ammunition in like 3 places on the entire map, which, as I said, is one of the design problems with the current mode that discourages firearm use in it, and I want to encourage it. Like, melee should have a role, but it shouldn't be the de facto thing that you're using for every single engagement. It should be the right thing to use in certain contexts against certain enemies, and absolutely the wrong thing to use in others. So yeah, it's the whole idea behind this mode was to encourage a really wide usage of various sorts of tools and gadgets and weapons, and I really failed at that as a designer out the gate with the mode last year. But I think I've gathered enough information, iterating on Taken Hold and in talking to y'all, to know how to really improve these systems as this mode gets a bow put on it. So yeah, so you will be seeing this as the primary focus, basically leading up till late October. My goal, if I'm looking at a calendar here, is to launch this rework on the let's see here, yeah, Friday the 25th of October, just so that there is a full week basically to play it prior to Halloween, because that would make thematic sense. So I don't know yet between now and then when I intend to start another alpha branch. It will likely be an alpha branch that does not contain the Rotwiener scene, but contains all of the new Sosig code. So those of you who want to play around with new melee systems, play around with the still very broken dev tool in the Proving Ground scene and such, will be able to do so and give me feedback and enjoy fighting with some new toys. So anywho, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you all next week with some more new cool stuff to show. Peace.